Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now for more conversation on the transition into President Buhari's second term is the founder of Stanbic IBTC and President ANAP Foundation, Atedo Peterside. Mr. Peterside, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you.
But before we go to national issues,
yes,
I would like to start with local politics. Okay. And that's Rivers.
That's Lagos. Okay,
that's Rivers.
Okay, sorry.
Rivers State.
Because I live in Lagos.
Because you were one of those who signed a petition
yes.
as a concerned stakeholder
yes.
when the political process in Rivers State appeared to be getting out of hand with violence and kidnappings.
It was a disgrace. Use the word disgrace.
Okay.
Yes, it was a total disgrace.
Are you satisfied with the outcome so far in terms of the investigations that have been launched into the violence, and also now that the Supreme Court only yesterday seems to have resolved the conflict within the APC?
There's a fundamental difference between the investigations that we called for versus what is going on. We asked for the federal government to set up a judicial commission of inquiry. What you have now is a state government setting up a judicial commission of inquiry. But to the extent that the state, the governor and the state are phenomenal stakeholders in the process, I don't understand how a key actor in the process can be initiating an investigation of actions in which he and the states and officials were involved in. It's for the federal government to live up to its responsibilities, and say, look, these issues go beyond state government officials. It involves the army, it involves the police, it involves INEC, it involves you understand me? You cannot have I'm not accusing anybody, but you cannot have a participant in misbehavior investigating the actions of everybody. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but yesterday, Governor Wike, after the Supreme Court ruling on the appeals by Tonya Cole and the APC, issued a statement, even had a state broadcast, in which he's calling for reconciliation. He's extending a hand of friendship across to all the stakeholders.
That was long overdue.
He has even asked the Attorney General to take a look at persons who were arrested and who have criminal cases and review them. So what do you make of this latest development?
Please don't get me wrong. At any point in time that people who behave badly before start behaving well, we must applaud them and encourage them. If everybody was behaving well in Rivers State, why would I wake up, waste my money, paying for full-paid adverts in the nation, calling for this, calling for that, writing, sending email to the President's Chief of Staff, to the Vice President, to everybody, calling that attention to what is happening in Rivers State. But please, if for whatever reason various people now stepped in, spoke to them, and they now want to behave properly, we must encourage them and applaud them. But let me make it very, very clear. What we are looking for is a permanent solution. That somebody just says sorry for all the misdeeds, or both sides say sorry, is not enough. Let me explain why. We have escalating violence in Rivers State in elections, which means that if basically people get away with murder this time. So next time when you call elections, everybody gets ready. Some get by the army, some by the police, some by INEC, some by cultists, all kinds of things. Some buy machetes, some buy guns. So what are you going to do this time to ensure that future elections are different? That is my focus. The first thing you must do is to investigate every crime that was committed this time and try and bring the people who perpetrated those crimes to justice. There are people who were killed, people who were shot. There are videos and photographs showing the name and the particulars of the particular soldier or whoever. People lost their relatives. They know who killed their relative. So you just tell them that, oh, Wike has apologized to Amechi, so they should all go home and it's fine. You must deliver justice. If you're not seen to deliver justice, the next elections may follow the same pattern.
Well, let me ask you, what has been the response so far? Secondly, you're right. With every election cycle in Rivers comes violence and bloodletting.
Yes.
But Rivers is not one of the richest states in the country. But what makes the stakes so high in Rivers that, it turns to do or die politics every election cycle?
It's a very good question, because if you use resources, you're right that you may have a theory that says perhaps because the state receives so much allocation, so there's a big pie to fight over. But excuse me, Akwa Ibom gets a big pie. Delta gets a big pie. And they don't have this disgraceful conduct there by their own leaders, political leaders. I think also, because I believe in telling the truth to everybody, so help me God. Part of the issue, what makes Rivers State unique is that you have two leaders of the two major political parties. Two of them first worked closely together. One was chief of staff of the other as governor. People say that a falling out between friends or brothers is often a lot more vicious than a falling out between strangers. So they know each other's tactics. They know what misdeeds they were involved in before. They know what the other guy intends to do. So they're preempting each other in an endless cycle. And we are saying enough is enough. Enough is enough. I'm happy that Governor Wike is now sounding and saying the right things. And I will also put it on record that immediately after the elections, Rivers State government came out with a disgraceful video mocking the opponent, the APC. And some of us screamed and said, what kind of nonsense is this? If you've won an election, why don't you just thank God, reach out to your opponents, olive branch, and so on? So we condemned that video immensely. I hope it has been withdrawn. You follow me? So the point I'm making is that we, the citizens of the nation, have to hold our leaders to behave properly. And it doesn't matter whether anybody listens to me or not. I don't care. If you want to listen to me, I will send a message to you. The vice president cannot deny that I sent him the things in the media. The president chief of staff cannot deny that I sent it to him. I say I sent it. I publish it in every newspaper. Because I think that it is the duty of senior citizens to call younger leaders who are behaving irresponsibly to order. Lives are involved.
So are you saying there has been no response from the presidency?
How can I say there's no response? Haven't we seen that suddenly the actors are behaving better? Nobody needs to tell me what actions were taken. You get what I'm saying? I'm just saying that if they're behaving better, let us commend them and perhaps commend those who helped to encourage them to behave better.
I'm talking about the Judicial Council you're requesting the president to set up.
Judicial Commission of Inquiry. We asked, sorry, please, let's be very careful. The president of a nation has many things to do. It is for you or people to make a movement or a case to say, okay, this election is over. What are we going to do to ensure that future elections in Rivers State do not become a battle between army, cultists, and all? That's all. And it's only one idea. So you cannot put a time limit, or somebody must embrace your idea in 5 minutes. Because actually we have 4 years to embrace these ideas and put them into action. Except that it's very tempting to do nothing after those who have misbehaved have apologized, only to reopen the old wounds 4 years from now. Indeed, the most frightening thing is that if you listened to some of the speeches, some of the justifications of people's actions in 2019, it was because the opponent did worse to them in 2015. So did people wait 4 years to revenge?
Well, before the election, ANAP Foundation, your foundation, in collaboration with NOI, a polling agency, did a poll on the election. And you wrote a piece in which you made certain projections. When you look back now, I mean, I read that your piece again, and I see that you were spot on some of the projections.
Let me tell you what will surprise you.
Yes.
ANAP Foundation has been doing opinion polls since 2011.
Okay.
We did presidency then. The opinion poll showed then that Jonathan would win, and he won by a big margin. We did opinion poll then on Lagos State, and I'll put it on record that that opinion poll we did on Lagos State elections in 2011 was the elections that the likely winner had the biggest majority ever. It was Fashola with something like almost 70% of Lagos supporting him. No other person has ever scored 70% ever since. That was when he was going for second term. Now, every single opinion poll that ANAP Foundation has done, including Ekiti, 2014, including this time, Rivers, Lagos, in every single case, the end result has finished up in line with what our opinion polls showed, which was that if you were the leader, invariably you won. You follow me? Even Sokoto, we did a poll.
Yes.
Tambuwa
You said PDP
would win narrowly.
Yeah.
I never imagined he would win by 230 votes. You understand me? The case of Kano, though, is a bit different, I think, because what we showed there was that Ganduje was ahead, but Abba had momentum going into the elections. And it looks as if he had so much momentum that it was going to become very, very close. But at the end of the day, I think in the final, elections they had, there was lots of violence. So I don't even know whether that was an election at the end.
But, that your report concentrated some paragraphs on undecided voters.
Yes.
And these undecided voters were basically from the south-south, the southeast, and the southwest.
No. Every zone in the country always has undecided voters.
But you said about 38% or so.
The average nationwide was 38%.
Yes.
But it was in the northeast and in the northwest, the percentage who were undecided was a much lower figure. The average was driven up by huge undecided in the southeast, I think followed by southwest and south-south. But that is partly because I think it's natural to expect that if two people, Northern Muslims, are running, the first people to pay attention and pick sides between these two people will be their own people. Others in the southeast, if you're a trader in the Navy, you can just be watching these two Fulani men until the last minute. They make up your mind, which of the two I should back. Because they didn't believe they had the same stake in it. Of course, you vote. You have until the last day to go and cast your vote. So my point is that even that is natural behavior.
Well, Vice President Atiku is challenging the outcome of that presidential election in court now.
Yes.
And there are persons who say, well, maybe he shouldn't bother because at the end of the day, he couldn't have won anyway, according to the figures or the statistics or the projections. Where do you stand on that matter?
I think let's be careful.
Okay.
Our opinion polls too were very clear. Of every 12 Nigerians, Buhari was going to get 4 voting for him. Of every 12 Nigerians, Atiku had 3 voting for him, but that was in January. But if you went back some months, Buhari always had 4 Nigerians out of 12. Atiku came from 0 out of 12 to 1 to 2 to 3. That's why we say he had momentum. Where that momentum would have finished him up on election day, I can never know because it's a projection. But the point is that he became that close towards the end. No. Now, as for going to challenge an election, I always say it's the correct thing to do. If Peter Obi didn't challenge an election, he would never have been governor. It is for the courts, again, to do the proper thing. Look at all the evidence and make the right pronouncement. I cannot know what the correct pronouncement is. I don't have the evidence before me. But you see, but if you don't do, we must always encourage people to use the established path to register their protests. You see, in Sudan, they were taken to the streets to register their protest. In our own political climate, we should encourage people to behave the way Peter Obi did. He felt he was robbed. He got his lawyers. He gathered his evidence. He took it to a tribunal. That's how he ended up becoming governor for 8 years. So if people have begged him, oh, don't challenge anything, just accept and go. I think you accept and go when you know in your heart of hearts you were beaten fairly.
Well, President Muhammadu Buhari maintained his 3 cardinal promises of security, the economy, and anti-corruption fight. But in your own opinion and in your view, let's talk about the economy. What is this administration doing right, or what has it done right that it should maintain going to the next level concerning the economy?
Look, our economy is broken. It didn't matter whether Atiku won or Buhari won. Almost everything I'm going to say now, I would have said irrespective of the winner. If you have a leaking basket, it's a leaking basket. It doesn't matter who is the owner of the basket. The facts don't change. The economy of Nigeria is broken. And if urgent action is not taken to fix it, we will be progressively sliding towards poverty and extreme poverty. Let me explain. The federal government, our federal government today has more or less lost fiscal viability in the sense that, let me use some very crude, ordinary figures. 100% of the revenue that our federal government receives for itself is consumed by 2%, by less than 2% of the population in terms of their salaries and wages. So the other 98% of Nigerians basically are not getting any share. You follow me? Sorry, when I said it's consumed by 2%, that 2%, the wages and salaries plus debt service of previous debt consumes everything. So therefore, you have a government that really is continuing with a distortion, some of which they inherited, but they're doing nothing to change that distortion. How can anybody run a family or a business or anything where 100% of all the revenue is consumed by 2% of the family? It doesn't make any sense. You have to make some fundamental changes. And I hope that, so can you see what I'm saying? That whether Atiku won or Buhari won, you have to address that problem. Not only is the 2% consuming everything, and please, that 2% increasingly are the sons and daughters of connected persons. No poor Ogoni man can get a job in the federal NMPC. No poor man from Ilesha or a poor man from Zamfara can get a job in Central Bank. You understand me? So what is happening is that the elite have captured federal government, have captured all the job positions for their own people. And so that 2% is consuming everything. And they're offering the rest of the nation poverty. I put it in crude terms, and I challenge anybody to meet me on any program. Let's debate it. Now, so what do you have to correct? Let me continue. 730 billion is then squandered. That should have been used for something serious. It's then squandered on fuel subsidy. For me to get here today, the federal government subsidized my petrol by 40%. When I buy diesel, there's no subsidy. I buy it 100. I pay the correct price. So I buy diesel for 245. When I want to buy petrol, federal government insists, don't pay 245, pay us only 145. We will absorb the loss of 100 so that I can get to Arise Studio at a subsidized price. Now let me explain something, because people talk carelessly. They start talking as if in the 21st century, there are no ways to take a subsidy and give it only to the deserving, the very poor. There are ways. Let me give an example. We've come a long way in terms of IT development. You can have a situation where that 730 billion, if you insist you want to give it away, don't give it to people like me or others who can afford to look after themselves. You can take that same 730 and only target it at the poorest of the poor. We now have a situation where with a national ID card, with biometrics, and there are improved payment systems with the banks, you can actually use the same money for a handout to the poor. You understand? Very easily. But instead, you insist that you want to pretend as if there's no way of stopping people like me from sharing in the subsidy. The reason is, the reason is that I suspect it has become a deeply political matter. I didn't expect the president in his first term to address this problem head on. It's possible, I'll be fair, it could have cost him his re-election. You understand me? But in your second term, if you're not going to do the correct thing, when will you ever do the correct thing? There's no third term for you. You understand me? Let me give an example of Lagos State. Lagos State too was in danger of becoming fiscally unviable some years, 15 years ago, in the sense that the sum total of personal income taxes and so on, they were entitled to, all this VAT and so on, added together was a joke and was never going to meet the needs of the state. How did they resolve that problem of fiscal unviability? That's when they came out with the land use charge. A rich man can hide his income, but can he hide his house? So they then decided that, do you remember all the controversy?
Yes.
Yes, that the only way they were going to become fiscally viable was to take the big step, you follow me, and find a way to slap a huge bill on the rich and the richest. So can you now see the point I'm making, that those same principles have to be bought by the federal government? What we're doing now is squandering resources. In fact, after petroleum, the next thing is that we waste the rest of the money on things like defense. But we're not putting money on defense to fight external wars. Having deprived 98% of the population of anything, as the youths begin to now grab things for themselves, be it as bandits in Zamfara or so on, you now have to spend more on the army to sort of try and quell those youths. So is it not better for you to use the same money and give those youths some handout, a social net, sort of safety net or something like that? Well, you insist on squandering all the money in the wrong areas. And now we are going to exacerbate the problem by increasing the minimum wage for these same people that you described as the relatives of those in power who are in the civil service. They're demanding an increase in the minimum wage and all kinds of things. Well, let's keep on running this fiscally unviable system. Another reason that makes it fiscally unviable, central bank takes some dollars, sell at 315 instead of 360. And the 45 naira differential, which should have gone to the governments, they decide what they want to use it for. So my point, that's why I said that you have a leaking basket, leaking in several areas, leaking from fuel subsidy, leaking from central bank, dual pricing. You have all these sort of problems have to be addressed and quickly too. Then, even with all those, after plugging those leakages, my position is that the revenue inflow to the government may still not be enough. That's also why you need VAT increases. VAT increases can be selective in the sense that you don't have to put it on, even in the UK, I believe there's no VAT on books because they want everybody to buy books and learn. You select the items on which you put it. You follow me? But in Nigeria, if you listen to people, everything you want to do to redress the issue of fiscal unviability, they'll tell you don't do it. Don't change petrol price. Don't change VAT. So if you won't change anything, then what are you going to do? You will just sit down there every day blaming the problems of the country on the rich. Meanwhile, you are the one who gave me a subsidy to come here today. Then you start abusing me, abusing me for enjoying the subsidy you gave me.
But the argument is instead of increasing the VAT, you expand the tax nets for more people.
Let me first explain this so-called tax net thing. I said the easiest tax to collect. I said it for Lagos State. Lagos State too collects personal income tax. Do you know what it means to collect personal income tax? We do self-assessment. I will declare all my incomes. We will work out everything, what is due to you, and so on. There's so much scope for false declaration. On the other hand, an indirect tax like VAT, in most countries, the biggest source of revenue for many countries is the VAT on petroleum products. When you drive to a filling station and there's VAT on the petrol I'm buying, tell me how I'm going to avoid it. If I don't pay up, I don't get it. So the point I'm making is that you have to now seek, like Lagos State did. Lagos State gets a fortune every year by collecting the taxes on the things you cannot hide. So let's not just, in any case, how can you just take a broad action and say I'm against VAT increase on everything?
Well, the whole of this week, up to now, we've been dealing with these issues. In the light of the statements from the World Bank and also the IMF Global Economic Outlook report. And, all these issues, IMF is recommending, for example, that we should stop subsidizing fuel. The World Bank is calling for tight monetary and fiscal policy control. Another look at tax incentives, a new framework for taxation, support for the private sector. But the attitude you get from government departments is to claim that, maybe IMF and World Bank are unnecessarily interfering. Why is it so difficult for us to
I don't even like to talk about IMF.
accept ideas that are
I don't even like to talk about
plain-sight
IMF
facts?
or talk about World Bank because the economist there, I'm an economist myself. I'm talking about the economic ideas and these policy solutions because the same policy measure, if you sell it as a foreign prescription, has different connotations. So I don't need to quote IMF or the World Bank. I'm telling you what you need to do as a Nigerian. Follow me. Now let me mention something that IMF will not mention, that the World Bank will not mention. I put it to you that we are running an economic system right now that is rigged against the youth in the sense that even in the private sector now, new businesses, younger people's businesses are threatened every day by rogue regulators. There are young Nigerians who come and start a business, entrepreneurs. You have no jobs for them. They're doing their own business. Every other government agency or regulator is taking out wrong actions against them and slowly putting them out of business. So at the end of the day, they find that they cannot overcome all these hurdles. Why do I use the word rogue regulators or use the expression that is rigged against the youth? Because there is The reality is that can a rogue regulator really go and use the same tactics against the biggest businessman in Nigeria, who might be a close friend of the government?
It will be difficult.
Thank you. So therefore, can you see, when our lady here said expand network and so on, what they do is that they do not have the courage to go to those who are closely connected and so on. So they spend all their energy trying to impress their bosses by whipping and lashing young, poor entrepreneurs, and they are the ones they are stifling and beating and locking up. And please, it's across the board. There has to be a paradigm shift. When I began IBTC, I was 33. If we had this kind of rogue regulators around, I may never have survived. And I'm talking seriously, quote me. I'll give you a real-life example. 1 year after I began IBTC, we had a serious problem with CBN. Some rogue regulators from CBN decided to manufacture all kinds of things against us and were insisting that they be settled. I was 34 years old. I told my staff, I'll be damned if I'm going to start a bank by going down this route. So you know what I did? Eventually, after it got out of hand, I summoned up courage, called the deputy governor in CBN, and reported everything and gave all the people names, facts, and everything. The matter was investigated. He found that we were 100% correct. And all those people were terminated. Now, the point I'm making to you is that government exists to protect businesses. But in the mood we're in today in Nigeria, and please, it didn't begin from this government. It gets worse every year. All manners of rogue regulators know that it doesn't matter what they do to your business, nobody's going to come there and expose them and fire them. Indeed, sometimes they are applauded by being seen to be tough. Nobody goes to investigate, but is this guy being tough fairly? So the point I'm making is that we have an economy that is threatened. The World Bank will not probably use language like rogue regulators because they have to be kind to the government. I don't have to be kind to anybody. I'm a Nigerian. And I'm saying that let the powers that be listen to this. I myself have been the victim of numerous rogue regulators. But there are two ways to survive in business in Nigeria, and I warn the young ones. Sometimes people come to me for advice. They want to go into a business. I tell them, you can't do this business. They say, why not? I have this, I have that. I say, you missed the point. You won't be able to overcome the problems you will face from customs, from NAFDAC, from CBN, all those people. They say, but Mr. A or Haji B is doing it. I said, you missed the point. He can call the CBN governor, you can't. He can call a minister, you can't. He can call the head of customs, you can't. So the system is rigged in favor of those who are very close to government, who have that clout. So they're the only ones who therefore enjoy protection. The rest become victims. Meanwhile, the work of government is to create an enabling environment where even those who don't have a minister's phone number can thrive.
Well, before we let you go, there was this incident recently whereby your private jet was attacked at the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos, and a bag was stolen. And we've had many cases of this. Have you taken further steps to engage FAN, the Aviation Authority of Nigeria, at the airport, to see how this can be addressed? Because if people are no longer safe boarding aircraft in Nigeria and they have their luggage stolen, that's really scary.
Okay, let me just make some corrections. I happen to own a company, ANAP business jets, that owns a number of aircraft, so it was a business.
Okay.
Because some of the media wrote that I was attacked, my plane was... It was not me personally. I was actually in London. One of our planes was attacked.
Okay.
But if it was a plane, it could have been anybody else's plane.
That is true.
But I think in fairness, we did the correct things, make the necessary reports to the authorities, they're investigating. So I don't think it's fair for me to make any other comments because they assured us that everything was being investigated. All those who were present, the pilots made statements and so on. So that process is continuing. So, but I think also that there's a commitment already, as I'm seeing, to ensure that those things don't happen. It's just being reinforced further Sometimes an incident happens and then people realize, oh my God, we have to get better. We cannot allow this to happen to the next person. Because the whole world is watching and news travels nowadays.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Peterside. We could have continued for another, for a whole hour, but we'll have to cut it short here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for honoring our invitation. It's time now for a short break. When we come back, Folawe Omikunle, CEO of Teach for Nigeria, will be speaking on what we all can do to ensure that Nigerian children have access to quality education. Stay tuned.